There are various career options in the world, some of which are not so popular. On this platform, we bring you viable options to guide you in the choice of a career. And we do this by exposing you to practicing professionals who will speak about their profession and aid your choice of a career. This is Catch Them Young. My name is Praise Shogbade, and I am delighted to be your host. You are watching Divine TV, where we enrich souls through the gospel of Christ. Today in the studio, we have an architect who will be speaking to us about his profession. He will tell us all that his profession entails. If you want to be an architect, then this show is for you. His name is Mr. Odebi Olajide. Welcome to the show, sir.
All right, thank you so much, Miss Praise. I'm delighted to be here.
We're so glad to have you. All right, very quickly, I just want you to describe your profession to teenagers and young adults watching right now. Architecture is actually a popular profession. It's something that we hear on a daily basis. It's something that a lot of people know about. A lot of people hear about, but do not know about. So you are here to enlighten us on what architecture is. So I want you to just describe what architecture is to the teenagers and young adults watching this show right now.
Okay, thank you so much for the privilege. So basically, I'll just begin by saying that architecture is about buildings and spaces. So, so you can imagine the viewers right now. You are somewhere currently. You are either staying inside a building or standing around one. So it shows you exactly what architecture is about rather. So and what that means is that an architect, as she was trying to, she's trying to say, entails what architecture entails rather is the design of buildings and the advising on the construction of the same. So that's basically what architecture is about.
Well, thank you very much. So let's talk about you for a moment. You've been in this profession for how long now?
Well, I've been in this profession for 4 or 5 years now.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Okay, so how has the journey so far been for you? There's probably been ups and downs. Just tell us about your journey. How did you start? Where did you study? What did you study? Just take us through the journey. All
right. So for me, it started by seeing someone who I admire a lot then. I mean, I was younger then, and in one of association I belonged to, there was an older person I always looked up to, and he was an architect, and I saw that he was doing so well, and then I took a delight in it. And then in school then, people were just asking, and what do you want to do? And I'll just say it like without knowing exactly nothing about the profession. So what I still said I wanted to do architecture. And funnily then in senior secondary school, when we were about registering for JAM then, I said I wanted to study architecture in UI. Apparently, UI didn't have architecture as at that time. This was 2013 thereabouts. And one of my teachers then said, why not try OAU? Then we tried OAU, and I tried OAU rather, and then it worked. So you asked for my journey so far. Yes. I did architecture BSc in OAU 4 years, and continuous study, that's my master's degree in OAU also for 2 years immediately after those 4 years. I mean, architecture has been a very, very delightful journey. As you said, ups and downs. I think most of the downs were when we're in school. I wouldn't discourage anyone from doing it, but I'll say that they always say, and we always say, and which is actually quite true, that architecture isn't for the faint-hearted. It is something that's quite rigorous. The trainings required are quite rigorous. But more importantly, those trainings are actually what equips us to be and brings out the best, as you said, brings out the best in us as it is. So
thank you so much.
That's a briefing on my journey so far.
Okay, you know, your story is quite, you know, you wanted to study architecture initially because you saw it, even though you didn't know what it meant. Yeah. But there are some people who just choose a career path and they don't know what it is. And then they get into it and realize they shouldn't have chosen it. You were, let me use the word fortunate, to have found out that even after getting into it, this is something you really want to do, right? So what advice would you give to those who are already practicing something else, and probably because of what you've said so far, they find out that they want to do architecture? Is there a way to take courses outside the 4-year course in school? Is there a way to take other courses and still be an architect?
Well, it's quite a difficult question, and the reason why I'm going to say that is because I'm somebody that delights in order. And when I say I delight in order, it means that I like it that this is what we need to do, this is what we have to do, and let's just get it done that way. So if architecture is what you have in mind to study, one of the things since we're talking about professions on this show, I think it is important for every young viewer out there to understand that choosing a profession or a career path isn't something you want to rush into. It is something you want to take your time to learn about things, and then before you get into it. But also, a caveat to that is basically for you to understand that the world is changing and moving so fast, such that many people don't even study what they do in school anymore. But I like to say that architecture isn't one of those courses where you would easily let go of what you studied in school, because it must have taken quite a lot from you in school. I'll say it. So I said it earlier that it is quite rigorous. So it takes quite a lot from us while we're in school. So I can say that while in many other departments, many other career and professions rather, you see people usually veer off from what they studied in school easily. For architecture, it isn't as easy. I can categorically say that, for example, my own classmates, I think about 90% of us are still in this business of architecture, as I said earlier, owing basically or mostly rather to what it took from us while we're in school and what we had invested into it as such.
Thank you very much. I asked that question because so far on the show we've had people, professionals, talk about their career, and then they tell us that you can easily branch into it if you are probably studying something else right now, even if you studied something before. So there are professional courses out there in some other professions that you can just take, maybe a 6-month course, a 1-year course. But it's just quite funny that for architecture you have to do the 4-year course, do the 2-year course and all that. So for the teenagers and young adults watching us right now, if you're probably wondering, is this something that I can still do? Because I'm sure we have people who they are already in school. We have some who are yet to choose a career, and then we have some who have already chosen a career, because there are some 20-year-olds, they are young adults, they are watching right now. So we have heard from the architects here that if you want to do architecture, you have to follow through the process. It's best to follow through the process. Thank you so much. And one other thing that we've come to realize so far on this show, and even in Nigeria, is that parents influence the choices of their children's career paths. Did your parents ever kick against you studying architecture?
Well, yeah, I think that's a personal question, and I'll answer to the best degree that I can. My parents had almost no influence in choosing my career path. I'm fortunate to have blessed parents who are quite free, and they are very trusting. And when I say they are very trusting, it means that at different age levels as we have grown up, myself and my siblings, they have actually left us to do things as the age limit permits. Well, at that time, I think it was more of, this guy I think he should be good enough to decide what he wants to do and then go ahead for it. So they didn't have any influence whatsoever in what I wanted to study. I just mentioned it to my dad and mom, I want to do architecture, and they were like, beautiful, go for it. So that's basically it.
Thank you so much. So do you think that parents, what do you have to say to parents who want to force their children to go through a particular career path?
Well, I mean, I don't think it is very, I think what parents can do at the most is to advise. They shouldn't force. What they should do at the most is to look at the child's growth path, look at what the child has grown up to love, to be passionate about, and advise along that line, particularly. Well, I'm a Christian, so I can say that one important factor that can help parents to guide them in that choice is to understand God's plan for the children, for example. So I know that part, but more importantly, parents need to observe their children over and over, observe what they have grown up to like, what they have grown up to be passionate about. You can imagine a child that has grown up to know how to draw a lot, it draws all kinds of things, and a parent wants to force them to study medicine. You can imagine how awkward that would mean. Of course, it doesn't mean that the child won't succeed as a medical doctor, but it only means that they have, in a way, shortened the reduced rather the potential of that child to actually do what he wants to really do.
Thank you so much. So we'll talk about the skills needed to study architecture. We'll also talk about the challenges in the profession. But before then, we'll go on a quick break, and when we are back, we'll continue with our discourse. Stay with us. Enjoy inspirational, informative, and soul-lifting Christian programs such as Christian Parenting and Homefront, Light After Darkness, Fulfilling the Mandate, Kids and Bible, Movies Review, Shepherd's Spouse, Kingdom Stars, Teens Perspectives, My Next Gospel Event, and lots more on Divine Television. Download Divine TV mobile app on Google Play Store or watch on our YouTube channel. You can also visit www.tvdivine.net. Divine TV, enriching souls through the gospel of Christ. Welcome back. This is still Catch Them Young. My name is Praise Shogbade, and once again, I am delighted, always delighted to be your host. Still in the studio, we have an architect, Mr. Odebiyi Olajide, speaking to us about his profession, all that his profession entails, what it takes to be an architect, the skills needed to be an architect, the challenges, as well as the prospects of the profession. So before we went on a break, we were talking about the fact that parents influence their children's choice of a career path, and then you mentioned that you would rather advise parents to get the plan of God for their children and advise them in that path. So thank you very much. Right now, I want you to talk about the skills needed for those who want to study architecture. There's this general knowledge that to be an architect, you have to be creative. You have to come up with, creative designs. Some people say you don't necessarily have to be a designer. So we really want to hear from someone who knows his onions on this profession. What are the skills needed? For a journalist, you could say that you need to be outspoken. For a lawyer, people say you need to be able to argue and all that. So for architects, what skills, what values also do you need to have to be able to practice?
Well, I'll start from something that's a very common notion for everybody. People think that for you to be an architect, you need to know how to draw a lot.
Yes.
If someone was able to stand in front of you and you're able to draw the person live. Well, I think a background in arts, a background in technical drawing, a background in, I think those two goes a long way to influence you as an architect. But I don't think they are 100% essentials in as skills. So what I mean is this: I don't mean that an architect should not have a basic understanding of what drawing should be, but it doesn't mean that you can't succeed as an architect to not know how to draw from scratch. And again, you talked about creativity. I think that's very, very fundamental. But I also believe that creativity is in every human being. It is usually developed and sometimes learnt in that sense. And over time, you get to develop it. So when we say skills, I think the most important thing for an architect to have is to have a passion for the environment. That's usually what defines who successful architects are, because architecture deals with, as I said earlier, buildings and spaces, and those two things are what embodies the environment. You must have a passion for the environment. You must have a passion to see beautiful things around you. So things like that are what influences you to actually study architecture as you, or the skills required to study architecture.
Thank you very much. So if you are watching this show right now and you are interested in architecture, you need to get creative. You need to bring out the creativity in you. Okay, I want us to talk about the career opportunities in architecture. Do you necessarily have to do a 9-to-5 to practice as an architect? Are you limited to what are the limitations in the career? What exactly are you limited to? What are the opportunities? Do you only, we call you generally architects, but are there people who do with designing, and then people who, what are the opportunities?
All right, so I'm going to go ahead to explain the career opportunities that architecture offers now. And before I do that, I'd like to just make reference to when we're in school, a number of things that used to fly around then, that there were some courses that they almost didn't have any career prospects at all, but they were the ones that they would tell you can work anywhere in the world. You can. So architecture isn't like that. You can't work anywhere in the world in that sense, But well, I can say that you can work for anyone in the world, and well, I'll go ahead to explain basically. And when I say it offers you a lot of career prospects and opportunities, because architecture deals with spaces and buildings, it means that it touches everyone, and it means that whether sooner or later, everyone would actually get to need the services of an architect. And it comes to deal in many other different aspects. As you said, you asked if you could work a 9 to 5. Yes, you can work a 9 to 5. You can also work remotely. But more importantly, you can work, for example, in real estate firms. I mean, firms that deal with the purchase and the sales of lands and sometimes the buildings on them. You can work with construction firms. It means that an architect, you can major in construction. You know, earlier when I was defining who an architect is, I said an architect is someone who is responsible for the designing of buildings and also advises on the construction of buildings. So basically, an architect isn't ideally supposed to take up construction projects on their own without the help of engineers or without the input of engineers in that sense. So, but an architect should stand and, you know, just to say this and chip this in now, it's very important that everybody understands that the architect is usually called, and he actually is, the chief or the lead in the construction industry. So he leads that team. Why? Because what we are trying to achieve is originates from him. Yes. So that's why the architect is the lead in the construction industry. But as I was explaining the prospects, an architect can also work as an interior designer. I've seen these days that many people just go into interior design, but I dare to say it, and actually interior design is getting to be segregated as a department in many universities now, particularly at the master's level. So people can really specialize in interior design, but most of the time it is usually people who have a background in architecture that go into those interior design courses. But of course, there are exterior courses outside school, outside of the four walls of a university that teach people on interior design. But I dare to say it, right, that an architect has a lot more chances to succeed as an interior designer than any other person. So interior design, which is one of the booming creative industries currently on the market. So what else can an architect do? An architect can also work, as I said earlier, a 9 to 5, can work remotely. That is, an architect can work as a freelance person, working for various people from the comfort of their rooms. So if that's one of the questions that young people have these days, that I want to do a job that will not leave the home, just like my other brother is doing.
Flexible.
Yes, architecture rather offers you that kind of an opportunity also. So those are the prospects here.
Thank you very much. Now, I would want us to talk about the challenges in the profession, because, you know, so far you've said a lot, and anyone watching right now who is here to choose a career and is along the line already will say, okay, let me just do architecture. But I want you to talk about the challenges so they know what they are going into.
All right, so well, to talk about the challenges, I'll do this as honestly as I can, and I'll start from the training process. It is as I said earlier on this interview, that it is a very rigorous process. Yeah. So during school, you have many late nights, many nights working, trying to meet up schedules. You have your studio, that's the major drawing courses on campus. You have all that, and also courses from other departments, trying to beat up everything. It is quite a lot. That's one of the challenges. Now, the other challenge is what I personally have looked into, and I have tagged as a lack of structure in the profession in that sense. And that lack of structure, of course, is I believe it will firstly originate from I can say basically what the governing body, what they have failed to really put in place.
We're actually going to talk about the governing body, especially. We need to know if there's a body that governs architecture in Nigeria. But before we really go into that, let's go on a quick break. When we are back, we'll continue with our discussion.
All right, thank you so much.
Enjoy inspirational, informative, and soul-lifting Christian programs such as Christian Parenting and Homefront, Light After Darkness, Fulfilling the Mandate, Kids and Bible, Movies Review, Shepherd's Spouse, Kingdom Stars, Teens Perspectives, My Next Gospel Event, and lots more on Divine Television. Download Divine TV mobile app on Google Play Store or watch on our YouTube channel. You can also visit www.tvdivine.net. Divine TV, enriching souls through the gospel of Christ.
Welcome back. This is still Catch Them Young live on Divine TV, where we enrich souls through the gospel of Christ. Still in the studio today, we have an architect, Mr. Odebiyi Olajide, speaking to us about his profession and all that it entails. Welcome back once again.
Thank you so much, Ms. Praise.
All right, before we went on a break, we were talking about the governing body. Is there really a body that governs the activities of architects in Nigeria?
All right, yes, there are two governing bodies.
Okay.
There is the NIA, that's the Nigeria Institute of Architects,
Okay.
and there's also ACON, that's the Architects Registration Council of Nigeria.
Okay.
So those two bodies are responsible for all the operations and the administration of architects in the country, Nigeria. So I was going to say earlier that that those two bodies, as I said earlier, are the ones responsible for what we do as architects in the country.
Okay.
And they work in line with the schools of architecture all through the country to ensure a smooth running of operations of architects.
Okay, thank you so much. So do you have to be registered as an architect to practice architecture in Nigeria?
Yes. You have to be registered as an architect to professionally practice architecture in the country. But I would say that many architects, all right, many people finish from, because, and this is a balance to this, all right, to be registered as an architect is one thing. And when I say it is one thing, it actually entails quite a lot. And I can run through the requirements, all right, I can run through the requirements easily, and I'll run through them by just going through what are the things that are important. So, of course, you need to have a WAEC, that's a GCE O-level certificate.
Okay.
You need to have a first degree and its equivalent, and after a 4 or 5 years course of study from an accredited school rather. Then you need to have a second degree, that's MSc, MTech, MED, or its equivalent, and after 2 years of continuous study. All these things I'm naming are things that you need to have before you are registered as an architect. So also, you need to have, of course, evidence of having participated in the National Youth Service Corps, that's NYSC. Then there is a mandatory 2 years pupillage, all right, for architects that want to undergo. So, and this pupillage, you undergo it. It is like an internship program, but it's not an internship. They call it pupillage. So it means you work with an architect that has been accredited more than 10 years ago. You work with him for 2 years, and then you fill a logbook. So you also need to, of course, go through a pre-licensure seminar, and then you need to write an exam. They call the exam Architects Professional Competency Evaluation, APC. So you look at the long list of things that I've mentioned. I mean, there's still one or two more. Okay, I think that's all actually. I think there are 9 or 8 requirements for you to be registered as an architect. So those things, you need to go through all of them one by one, and you need to go through them diligently before you're registered as an architect. So you realize how important or how rigorous or tedious it is to become an architect. That's why you don't find so many registered architects actually. But I also would like to say that it's easier said than done. Doesn't mean it is impossible. It doesn't mean it can't be done. So people do it, and people go through it on a yearly basis. So those things just need to put in place before it is done. But you were going to say that to practice, so it has a thin line between it, and I put a caveat to it earlier, that to practice on a professional level, for example, there are projects that you can't take on as an architect if you aren't registered, while there are some others that you can take on, of course, under the pupillage or under the tutorship or mentorship of someone who is registered.
Thank you so much, because I was going to ask if you wouldn't be able to practice if you don't go through, because this looks like something that would take over 7 years.
Yes.
You have to go to school for at least 4 years, and then MSc 2 years or thereabouts, and all of those pupillage and all those. So for those watching right now and want to become an architect in the next 5 years, you are telling our audience that it is impossible to be architects in the next 5 years, to be professional architects.
Well, so let me put it this way, all right? I think one of the most important things to this registration thing is the title. So I, for example, for now, right, can't call myself architect, because I don't have the name ARC. It is a title, actually. The same way there are registered engineers that put surveyor, for example. Sorry, engineers that put engineer before their names, or surveyor before their names. So there's also architect this and architect that. So you can't put that name, you can't address yourself as an architect before you are registered. But it doesn't mean you can't practice. You can practice even on a professional level, actually, without being registered.
Thank you very much. I think one thing that I've gotten from what you've said so far is process. And this is actually something that a lot of teenagers in our time needs to understand, because everybody wants the shortcut. Everybody wants to, you know, do something. They want to attain a particular height, and they do not want to go through the process. So architecture is one profession that I think if you really want to attain heights in this field, you have to really go through the process.
Definitely.
Okay, finally, I want you to pitch for your career. This is probably one aspect where our viewers are waiting for, especially if they've been following the show, because everybody, they answer this question, they pitch for their career, they tell us what the world would be like without their career. So what would the world be like without architects? I mean, hype your career. This is the point where you choose to hype your career.
All right. So on a jovial note, I'd like to take you back to the medieval times when people used to sleep under rocks or sleep under trees or in the bushes without buildings. Imagine the world without buildings. Imagine the world without beautiful buildings, actually. So imagine that. That's what the world would actually look like without architects. Now, if you live in, I mean, professionals and people who have an eye for details would actually be able to tell a building that's designed by a professional architect, separate from one that they just give to one baba or one man somewhere to design. So, I mean, that's how important architecture is. Everybody lives somewhere. As a matter of fact, even people who live under the bridge was designed. So that's how important architecture is, actually.
Thank you very much. So from what you have said so far, I just want to clarify to teenagers, especially watching the show right now. Growing up, when we see buildings, we are just like, whoever built this. So we give that credit to people who did the building, not people who really designed it. But from what you've said so far and from what I understand, architecture comes before the actual building. So there has to be a design.
Yes. I mean, architecture entails the entire thing.
Okay.
But an architect, which you meant actually, is what comes before, because the building originated from an architect. It originated from the heart of hearts of an architect,
Thank you so much. So every building you see out there is an architect's idea. It was first built in his head.
Yes.
All right. So whenever you see a nice building, just say kudos to the architect. Finally, are you open to mentoring the next generation of architects?
Yes, I definitely am. I'm someone who is passionate about the young folks coming. I'm still a young folk, actually, but I'm saying maybe the younger folks now coming along. So I'm really open to that.
All right. So would you like to give us the social media platforms? How can we reach you?
Well, you can basically reach me through my mail at odebiyolajide@gmail.com.
All right. Thank you so much. It's been a smooth ride with you. It's been quite conversational, and I personally am enlightened. So if you're watching this show right now, you want to be an architect, or you probably had no choice of a career before watching, and you would love to connect with Mr. Olajide, you can easily send him an email. Thank you very much once again for this enlightening session. Thank you. All right, this is still Catch Them Young. I'm delighted to be your host. My name is Praise Shogbade, and you are watching Divine TV, where we enrich souls through the gospel of Christ. You can follow us on all our social media platforms at Divine TV. Also download our mobile app on Google Play Store at Divine TV. Do not forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel also, so that you can get notified when new episodes drop. See you next time.